First thing, remind everybody to turn off your cell phones, although we've got 3 on up here at the bench. We've got Commissioner Letts and County Attorney attending by phone. We've got another one, so if anybody calls in. There is no one here from the public for public comment, but I am inviting anyone, if you want public comment, this is your opportunity. Okay, there being none, or if you call, we'll take your call. Then let's do the Commissioner's comments. 4, let's go first.
4, had an 1 3/4 inches of rain over the last few days, which is nice and slow, very nice. Again, we're in different times, as you can see. We've got one commissioner calling in. I'll tell you what, last week was a long week. I was ready for the weekend. So you know, about yesterday morning, I was ready to get back here to start handling things. So that's all I got.
Good.
Couple things. The petition drive in Precinct 2 for the alcoholic beverage campaign, okay, to get it on the ballot on November 3rd, looks like it's going to have a blockage, which is really big, of not being able to go door to door to get signatures. There have been 2 states which have made exceptions in light of COVID-19. That's the state of Utah and the state of New Jersey. And they have suspended the requirements to have in-person signatures. They're letting that be done electronically. So I forwarded those 2 executive orders from those 2 states to Andy Murr and Don Buckingham to see if that could be considered in the state of Texas. It seems only logical, so that we can get that thing on the November 3rd ballot without having people. We're not going to be able to go door to door. People don't want somebody knocking on their door. So I think the precedent's been set. It seems logical, so that's in work. The other thing is exercise for COVID-19. Flat Rock Park is open. Okay, people are enjoying it. Looks like they're staying safe distances when I was looking at it the other day. So that's good. More people are out walking their dogs in the dog park. So all that's good. That's all I've got for Precinct 2, and we got an 1.5 inches of rain. So.
Well, since all this rain started, we've got 3.5 inches at my house.
How much last week, though? That's the parameter.
That's since last week.
Oh.
3.5 inches.
Oh.
Yeah. Altogether. I poured out 1 inch the first time it rained, and 2.5 this morning.
Bragger.
Yeah. So we get more rain in Precinct 1 too. We have more fun in Precinct 1, and we get more rain too. I want to say that there's still confusion about the governor's executive order recently, and people are still and there's misreporting. And I've had people calling me, and I've posted it on my commissioner's Facebook page, so you can see it directly from the governor. Don't get it filtered through something else. Look at what the governor said. Look at what the essential services are. There's a list included, and
I want to address that one on 1.2 on the agenda specifically, because there is a lot of question about that.
yeah, go straight to the source. That's always the best. That's all I have.
And Commissioner 3.
No comments other than what was already said.
Okay. You can see that I have mask up here. This is my wife's N99 mask. I think it's just my color, don't you think? This mask is one of the dispatchers in the sheriff's office made, which I think is probably more appropriate. And it just slips right over your ears.
Fantastic.
Now I can't see. There you go.
Yeah.
That simple. I put this on to comment that as I drove in, for those of you that don't know, I live between Ingram and Hunt, so I live pretty far west. There was barely a car's length between the trucks out there hauling trailers, from golf carts to ATVs to construction materials, nonstop going to work this morning. Not one mask did I see. First mask I saw was when I got to the courthouse today, and these that I brought myself. So I want to remind people that we will talk about the governor's order, because I think it's something that we need to talk about. And you can see what we've done here is with Commissioner Letts out, and for those of you that don't know, he will be attending remotely quite a bit because he is the next in line if something happens to me with this COVID-19. And so we're trying to have a chain of command, and if there's any question, Commissioner Moser's behind him. It's on the basis of seniority. And you can just go right down the line to Commissioner Ballou and then to Commissioner Harris. But we will have a chain of command through the whole thing. This is probably at least 3.5 feet, which is about as good as we can do right now with 4 of us on the bench. We've scooted to the corners to make it get a little bit farther apart. We may want to think about whether we're just going to have 3 here at a time, which would probably be just about the right distance, and whether or not the others attend remotely, but we'll be working on that. But in any event, those are the comments to get us started. Let's go ahead and call the first item on the agenda, which is 1.1, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding the update, facility use, and other matters related to COVID-19. Doug Thomas, our emergency manager coordinator.
Morning, Judge. Morning, Commissioners. Yeah, to kind of fill you in again, this is our situation report for the following week ending this morning at 8 a.m. Our EOC activation for the city of Kerrville, Kerr County, and the city of Ingram continues to be activated. We're still operating at an increased readiness level, and XH Health and Medical is still under effect, and we're still operating in phase 3 of the pandemic plan. We are operating with full staff, but working remotely at this time just so we can honor the COVID-19 social distancing policy. And the call center continues to be open for citizens needing information starting at 8 a.m. every day. The current situation, and these numbers are current as of 8 a.m. this morning. COVID-19, part of what I'm going to give you is off of the CDC and the DSHS website, as well as what I picked up on Friday's conference call at 4 p.m. COVID-19 continues to spread exponentially, as the DSHS calls it, according to CDC and DSHS. Community spread obviously is extremely active in Texas. Figures from the Department of State Health Services show that 28% of COVID-19 infections are locally acquired, meaning that it's community spread. 25% of COVID-19 infections coming from travel outside the county. 29 are acquired from travel outside the state of Texas, and 15% are acquired from travel outside of the United States. 3% are unknown, and those come from the Department of State Health Services epidemiology investigations that they do when they find out that somebody's COVID-19 positive. So they go and do an investigation, and these are the numbers that they're coming up with. An overview of the current situation in the U.S. as of this morning. Over 304,000 people are infected in the United States. Total deaths is 7,616. Texas infected, we have 6,812 infections. Total deaths are 127. The total number of tests run as of this morning are 70,938.
Is that in Texas?
That's in Texas, yes, sir. Private labs, 65,626 tests have been run, and public labs are 5,312. The COVID-19 infections for counties that...
Doug, can I stop there before we get on to the counties? In looking at the numbers and the percentages here, 28% of the COVID-19 infections are community spread.
Yes, sir.
And 3% are unknown. And that, if my math is right, that makes 69% of COVID infections are all travel related of one sort or another.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think that's important for people to know. 69% are travel related.
Yes, sir. Either outside the county or outside the state.
Okay. And I just want to get that clarified. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Our surrounding counties, Kendall County has 10 infections, Medina 4, Llano 3, Blanco 2, Burnett 4, Kerr County has 2 as of this morning, Gillespie County has 2, and Bandera still has 0. From the DSHS Region 8 numbers, there are 28 counties in our Department of State Health Services Region 8. There are actively 289 cases at this time. I think the promising number to look at is 85 of those 289 have recovered, or 85 additional. And there have been 11 deaths. Our operational priorities.
Doug, let me just interrupt you. Before you get away, can you give the public an idea of where those 28 counties are? We're not going to name all 28 of them, but just kind of the far reaches.
Anywhere from Atascosa County on the east to we're the far west county. Valverde and Kerr counties are the far west counties that are in DSHS Region 8.
So as we look at some of these, Kendall, Medina, Llano, Blanco, all these are in Region 8?
Yes, sir. Well, Blanco may not be in Barnett, but those are close to us in Hill Country County, so I put them in there for everybody's information.
Is Travis County and Barrett County in there?
Bear
Bear
County.
County is, Travis County is not.
Okay. But Comal County?
I believe Comal is in there, yes.
Okay. So there's some.
And I know there was one death in Comal.
Mhm.
Are the other deaths primarily San Antonio, Bear County?
Yes, sir. I think Comal's actually had 2.
2?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, and when you go to looking at the COVID counts on the DSHS map, both Dallas County and Harris County lead the state with over 1,000 confirmed cases for each of them. And then it drops down a little bit over 400 for Bayer County and Tarrant County and those other large metropolitan areas.
Deb, so that website, the public can look at that website and see what the current counts are?
Yes, sir, and they update that every day by noon.
And that website again is what?
You can Google Texas Department of State Health Services,
Okay.
and there's a icon for COVID-19 on there. It'll
Okay.
take you to they call it the COVID-19 dashboard.
Good deal.
Some of our operational priorities, again, public safety is still the top priority. And I'm talking about the EOC here. We're going to continue to provide timely and accurate information to the public concerning the spread of the virus and ways to combat it and to avoid becoming infected.
Tell the public what EOC is.
Emergency Operations Center.
Okay.
We continue to work with the City of Kerrville Emergency Management, Kerrville Fire Department, EMS, and Peterson Regional Management. Peterson Regional's Emergency Management, as well as their infection control nurse, developing tactics for testing, isolation, and treatment of infected persons or those persons under monitoring. PPE is coming in, it's albeit slow, and we're distributing that throughout Kerr County to first responders and others that are in direct contact or service to the public. Our mobile testing continues this morning at 0900 at the Hill Country Youth Event Center for appointments only. I'm trying to get some numbers from that. Really wanted some numbers on all those folks that have come through that have been screened. And they can't give me a total number of those, but I can tell you that 51 COVID-19 samples were set off for testing last week, and all of them had come back negative.
Excellent, excellent.
We have about...
And let me stop you there just so the public understands. The screening that's taking place out at the Youth Event Center, the initial screening is for the routine respiratory illnesses, and if all of those test negative, that includes the respiratory panel with the 20-plus viruses that are tested, as well as flu, strep, etc. If that comes back negative, then they send off for the COVID test.
That's correct.
And so there have been 51 of those,
That's correct.
but a large number of just regular screenings.
Yes, sir. And I don't know what that total number was. I really wanted to get that total number so we can get an idea of how many folks are being eliminated from the COVID-19 testing as well. I'm going to continue to try to get those numbers.
Can you post those on our website
We
when you get them?
Yes, sir.
Put them on the county website?
Yes, sir.
Good.
But just to clarify so the public understands, if they're screened and they're positive for flu, they're treated for flu.
That's correct.
And there's no COVID testing after that.
That's correct.
Everything on that initial screening has to be negative. Every single thing negative. Otherwise, you're being treated for a routine respiratory ailment. And if it's negative, 51 of those have been sent off for testing, and everyone's been negative.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah,
good
the
news.
whole idea behind the outreach center at the Youth Event Center is to eliminate all those other types of respiratory infections that you may have before COVID-19 testing is considered. Our public outreach, Peterson Regional has established again the line for talking with a nurse, 896-4200. Extension 1 is for those individuals who believe they are sick or have questions concerning COVID-19. The Kerr County EOC, Kerrville City EOC has been established and manned with a number of volunteers that can respond to FAQs or frequently asked questions. That number is 258-1111, 258-1111. Operates Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. for individuals that have questions. Canceled local events, school closings, offices that may be closed, public offices that may be closed, etc. And alternate means for accessing those local offices. As of last week, 180 COVID-19 related calls were taken by the call center. And it seems like every time there's an update, either we get an update on an executive order from the president or the governor, that those calls spike.
Sure.
Which is to be expected. Kerr County and the City of Kerrville websites continue to be updated to include links to Peterson Regional Medical Center, the Centers for Disease Control, and Department of State Health Services websites, and I'll be able to give those numbers that I've given out today to our IT folks to put on the website. We have established a list of recovery resources to assist citizens with information for assistance with food, utilities, rental assistance, etc. And both of those lists are accessible via the city's website as well as the Kerr County website. When you go back on the Kerr County website and start looking under the COVID-19 icon, and you click on that, you can scroll down, and I think it's near all the way at the bottom of the page is where our list of resources is for community outreach. Again, the Small Business Administration, for those with small businesses, has established an economic entry disaster loan that can provide up to $2 million in financial assistance. You can go to www.sba.gov/disaster and click on apply for that assistance. Again, this information is also contained on both the city and the county website as well as the Kerrville Chamber of Commerce website. That's the update for this morning. Y'all have any questions on anything?
Doug, for clarification, I see it reported, but I read the governor's executive order, and the governor has said he encourages or minimizes contact person to person, social distancing, etc., etc. But he is not required to stay at home. It's been reported several places that the governor said it's required to stay at home. That's not the case, correct?
That's correct.
Correct. Okay, just for clarification.
Doug, one question I got is on recoveries. You gave one number in there, and what was that as far as number of recoveries? You gave like 289 or something like that.
The DSHS numbers for Region 8.
Okay, that was for Region 8.
Yes, sir.
Do we have any numbers statewide or anything, or even nationally? Because that seems to be overlooked in all the figures that they're giving.
Those numbers are out there, they're not being posted.
Okay. All right.
And that's official, and that's what I've been looking for. You have the number of deaths, you have the number of current cases, you have the number of people that have been tested and they're over it. You have to assume that because it's not made clear. And we're all seeing the same information, I'm sure. One other thing that you mentioned, Doug, and that is that the urban areas have obviously been hardest hit, and it seems to flower out from those areas. All the surrounding counties of the big urban areas have more cases there, it looks like.
If you take a look at the major metropolitan areas, and the closest ones next to us are along the I-35 corridor. I-35 corridor, when you pull that map up, it looks like a Christmas tree. There and east, all the way to Harris County. And you do have some out far west, El Paso, for instance, and some in the Panhandle, some of those larger metropolitan areas. So, I think the first thing is for the public to understand that if you travel outside of the county, you travel outside of the state, you travel period, you're putting yourself and others at risk needlessly. I don't understand why I understand, I take that back. I understand why people would want to travel, and they have things they want to do, but to needlessly put yourself at risk and others is kind of beyond me. And I think at some point, you may see, what the governor's done has given us individual freedom to self-quarantine,
To be responsible.
self-isolate in situations that, at some point, if it doesn't happen, I can see a statewide order coming down for everybody to stay home, period. But it's my opinion. It's probably not good for.
We're going to be talking about that on the next agenda item. Hope you stay around and participate with us.
Yes, sir. Any other questions?
No, did a great job, Doug.
Thanks, sir.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is, the last item on our agenda until we pay the bills, is 1.2, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding the local state of disaster due to a public health and economic emergency proclamation that was signed by me on March the 24th, 2020, and extended until terminated by order of the court on March 30th. It's Monday again. I wanted to bring this up every month, weekly, so that we can talk about it. I definitely believe that this needs. We've got language that will carry it over, but I like to present it to the Commissioners Court every week, and I would recommend that we continue it.
Well, here's my question. Based on the governor's executive order, is it even necessary now? Does it have what the governor laid out on the 2nd pretty much resolves it for everybody everywhere, doesn't it?
Well, I think there's a lot of debate about the governor's order, and I won't talk about that.
But it says in there that it supersedes anything else. It says very clearly in his executive order.
Yes, and we need to discuss that. So let's just launch off into the discussion. I have virtually memorized the governor's order. Last week, I conducted over 30. I met with over 30 department heads and elected officials, briefing them on where we are with regard to the executive order and our disaster proclamation, and trying to get everybody at the courthouse up to speed so that we all have the same information. What the order says is that on a statewide basis, every person shall, and that's mandatory, every person shall minimize social gatherings and person-to-person contact other than members of your own household, except to provide or obtain necessary essential services. That's the exact wording of the order. If you've got it in front of it, you can read along with me. There's a lot of discussion about essential services. The governor attached the 17 essential service sectors from Homeland Security, and you go through there and see if it's an essential service. But the question that I've had asked most last week, and especially this weekend, is not so much what is an essential service, because we have a list of those, but what is necessary. And in my briefings with the county department heads and electeds last week, I emphasized there's 4 questions that I try to ask, and I encourage the public to ask these same 4 questions. And the first one is, whatever it is that you're about to do, whatever you're thinking about doing. When I get up in the morning and I walk out to the truck, I'm asking myself, is it necessary to go down to the courthouse today? Well, yes it is. And that is an essential service. So number 1, is it necessary? Number 2, is it essential service? Number 3, is what I'm about to do the minimum? Am I minimizing my contact? Because that's the order. We are ordered to minimize contact in social gatherings and person to person other than in our households. And then that 4th question that I add to it is, am I isolating? Because the only thing that we figured out so far, well, there's 2 things that we understand that kill this virus. Heat, and summer's coming. That's a good thing for South Texas, Central Texas, because it will get hot. It'll get hot pretty soon. That will help. And the other thing is the isolation. It needs a host. And if we're isolated, then it dies because you can't find a host. Now, that being said, the real question here is people are, in my opinion, are ignoring that first question, necessity. I was awakened, no, I was not. I was having coffee in the other end of the house when I hear my wife screaming out off the back porch at 2 work crews, a truck of rock masons that showed up on the neighbor's property to rock the new house that they're building. And they turned on the mortar mixer, and there's about I don't know, half a dozen to a dozen people running around, rocking a house at 7 o'clock in the morning. Is that necessary? I was talking to my son over the weekend, and he was talking, and he's an independent contractor, and he was asking me about my advice to him and what he should be doing. And I used the word necessary. He asked a great question. From whose viewpoint? From whose viewpoint? And everybody's heard me talk about chucks and trucks. We got a lot of chucks and trucks. My son's a chuck and a truck, okay? And he's asking me, well, Dad, you know, if I need to work, isn't that necessary? That's a fair question. And I told him, yeah, son, that's necessary for you. But is it necessary for the people that you're working for? Or really the better question is it necessary for the public? Just because you work in an essential service doesn't mean that you necessarily have to go to work today. That was my comment about driving in this morning. Every truck and trailer that I know is on that highway headed west. I come from the west. I don't know where they're going, but they're loaded up. There's rocks, there's roofing materials, there's plumbing materials. Everybody's going to work. And I have a hard time believing that it's absolutely essential for those projects in West Kerr County, which is one of the least populated parts of the country, for everybody to be going to work today. I think everybody just thinks that it's essential service so they get to work. And I don't think the test is that simple. Now, with regard to Commissioner Moser's questions about a stay-at-home order, I've answered this question dozens of times. I may be into hundreds by now. The governor's order is not a shelter-in-place order, and he's been unequivocal about that. In his video explanation the day after he gave, 2 days after he issued the order, he explained that he intended for people to stay at home, but it wasn't an absolute prohibition from leaving your house. So the intent behind this executive order is to stay at home if at all possible. And so you have to ask yourself, is it necessary to leave your home? Is it necessary to go to work for that essential service that day? The only businesses that I saw closed as I drove, and I drive about 15 miles to get into town, were tanning salons, beauty shops, barber shops. Everything else pretty much was open. And everybody else is treating this as business as usual. And the governor, I don't believe, this is just my opinion, and I'm open to hear yours, I don't think it was the governor's intent that this be life as usual. I think he wanted us to curtail our activity. And he wanted us to exercise personal responsibility. And quite frankly, I'm not seeing the personal responsibility being exercised out there that I would have expected of the people of this county. We don't need to have that many people going to work. We don't need to have that many vehicles out there on the street. If you drive past HEB, the lot's full. You drive past Walmart, the lot's full. I don't think that's the governor's intent. Now, we can keep playing Russian roulette with this thing, but if that virus gets here, it's going to be a beast. And so I'm asking everyone to please ask yourself 4 questions. Is it necessary? Is it an essential service? Am I minimizing my contact with other human beings? And how can I better isolate? If you're working on a job site, just don't be around other people. You get out there by yourself. And if all of us exercise the personal responsibility to do that, then I believe we've got a good chance of whipping this virus. But if we get reckless, like it looks like we're doing right now, and we don't individually minimize our contacts, we are at risk, and we're putting everybody else at risk. And so I, for one, would like to renew the state of disaster proclamation and keep it in effect as a reminder on a weekly basis as to where we are, so that we can monitor this thing and hopefully
But that
get ahead
doesn't
of it.
answer the question, is it a moot point?
Yes, in my opinion,
It's a moot point.
and to a certain extent, because a lot of people don't understand what was going on in the state at the time and what the governor's executive order really did. And so I'll address my perspective of that. Some of the counties, the major metropolitan counties, were exercising the local officials were exercising their emergency powers under Chapter 418, Section 108 of the Texas Local Government Code very broadly. And they were ordering all kinds of things because they had these emergency powers under that particular chapter of the Local Government Code. And the week before the governor issued the executive order, we got a warning, an admonition from the Attorney General that some of these local officials were overreaching the extent of the power that they were trying to exercise with regard to those emergency powers. And the Attorney General very sternly admonished us to don't interfere with matters that are the state's authority and not local government authority. It persisted, and so the governor took action. And the governor's action was to not only, as I said before, order every person shall minimize social gatherings and person-to-person contact with all persons other than those members of your household. That's the order. But it also goes on to supersede any of those prior overly restrictive orders. And it goes a step further. It even suspends the applicability of Chapter 418, Section 108 that grants the emergency powers to county judges and mayors to the extent that anything that we do that is inconsistent with his executive order, Section 108 powers to the county judges and to the mayors that this applies to, is suspended.
He suspended two of them.
Yeah, the first one is just the one that designates, but it's to the extent that it's inconsistent with his order.
Okay.
And that one was where you designate the county judge or mayor as the emergency management director of that jurisdiction. And so the statutory authority granted local officials, and that means myself, has been suspended to the extent it is inconsistent with the governor's order. So, to answer your question, Commissioner, can the order that I issued be any more restrictive than the governor's? No. And because the original powers in Section 108 allowed local officials to impose greater restrictions than the state. And that's been taken away.
I think one of the things it does, having a Kerr County executive order or emergency order like that, it doesn't interfere with what the governor said, but it emphasizes the importance of everything you just said. Be responsible, stay at home, do those kinds of things.
Well,
I
we
think
typically do that
I think that's the real value of doing it. Question, do we have to take action as a court to keep that in effect every week?
Technically, no.
Okay.
Let me say this, though. I know last week some people were expecting a joint announcement from the mayor and myself on some recommendations. That announcement became moot because of this executive order. Now, I will tell you that the city and the county and our respective attorneys did work on some orders that we eventually abandoned and did not even recommend to be adopted, simply because they're unnecessary, because we don't have the power to do it. We have to do exactly what the governor said. And that's why I memorized it and quoted time and time again. I'm going to bore you to death, but we're going to stick with what the governor said, because that is the law in Texas right now. And so there are no, of course, the county does not have ordinance authority to do anything. I know one of the proposals that I heard that has not been adopted by the city, and this is just hearsay what I've heard, was whether to adopt an ordinance that imposes fines on people for violating the executive order. To my knowledge, that has not been adopted at this point. We couldn't adopt one if we wanted to, because we don't have ordinance authority. But those are the types of things that were being discussed. And right now, all the local officials, the county judges, and by the way, I am in contact with all of our neighboring county judges. I visited with every single one of them in this area. I don't think I visited with 28, Doug, but I probably visited with at least a dozen last week. In fact, I was visiting with Judge Lux this morning. He wants to know if our golf courses are open. And I had to unfortunately report that they are. I'm not sure why that's such a great idea, but
Open air.
well,
Exercise.
but it's not personal responsibility. That's the point I'm making. And I'm banging my shoe on the
Let me
table.
say something, Judge. You've said that several times.
The governor, I even had a friend who asked if it's okay to go hunting. Well, this is crazy. It's not gonna hurt anybody to go hunting. It's not gonna hurt anybody to hit a ball run on the golf course in the fresh air. This idea that we're gonna hunker down and hide under the couch or something and act like something's coming to get us versus just exercising a good judgment and responsibility, that's what the governor's treating Texans like adults, which is what we want.
Absolutely.
So I'm for that. I think you're for that
I
too.
am too.
And so there's not anything wrong with recreation. If somebody wants to jog, cycle, hit golf balls, go hunt, go fish, whatever, it's probably a good time to do that and get better at your game. But here's my question still. What would our continuation of this order do that the governor's does not?
Nothing?
Okay. Now, typically, we pursue these things with a resolution. If we want to say, we're all for it, that's different than extending something that doesn't even matter anymore.
I don't think it matters either way, to tell you the truth. And I agree with you, Commissioner, as far as the common sense. Get out there, do your walking, do your jogging, hunting, fishing, whatever. But use common sense when you do come to check in or whatever it might be where you're going. Just use common sense.
Everybody's a little bit nervous, I think, a little edgy, and a lot of people, they're on their last nerve. This is scaring the crap out of them. But if you take a deep breath and think about it, most of us kind of do this anyway, other than it hadn't changed things for me much because I like my bubble. And other than shaking hands with folks, it hadn't changed much for me. And, you need to remember to clean off the gas pump when you use it. And because you're going to touch everything, then touch your steering wheel, might want to wipe down your steering wheel. Little things like that. But, not to act like we're in, I heard the Surgeon General describe this as 9/11, Pearl Harbor, all this stuff. I've heard people say you're like the greatest generation if you stay home on your couch. I call BS on that. You're not like a guy who's pinned down on the beach in Normandy being shot at because you stayed home on your couch.
Well,
I rest my case.
before the governor had his executive order and guidance, and the question came up here of, should we have an emergency order? And so I asked myself and talked to several of you that what is the benefit of it and what's the downside? Well, it's certainly going to cause people to get alarmed, okay? And is that alarm and disconcerting thing and anxiety that'll cause the public of value? At that time it was, because it had to do with enabling small businesses to perhaps take advantage of the fact that we had an emergency order. Also, it had the fact of making sure communication stayed open. But now, in light of it doesn't provide those benefits, I guess the question is it causing more anxiety than it is benefit? That's the issue, if we keep the emergency order in place.
Well, that's good to point out what the original purpose was.
Right.
I think that was.
It was a good reason to do
It was
it.
a good intent
Right.
originally. I agree with that.
And we included economic emergency in ours.
Right, and
Right.
that's why
That's the
I
city.
voted for it,
You
for
bet.
that reason. It was a good idea. But I don't think that it matters anymore.
Well, regardless of what this court does with it, I still reiterate, we need to ask ourselves those 5 questions. And the 5th question that I've added to my list from last week is, are we exercising personal responsibility? Because I don't disagree with anything that you said, Commissioner, either Commissioner, any of the Commissioners. But are we exercising personal responsibility? And seeing all those trucks whizzing down that highway, and everybody going to work and having the workers show up next door, is it necessary to put the rock on the house today? Is it? I don't know. To have that many people that are, and they're not isolating over there, you know how they work. They work right on top of one another. So are you self-isolating? Are you social distancing? Are you cleaning your steering wheel? Are you cleaning off the gas pump? All of this stuff is personal responsibility. But I think it all comes back to, if we exercise our personal responsibility, we're not going to have any more restrictive orders from the governor. If we don't, they will be more restrictive. I think that's a fair assumption.
Sure.
Judge, this is Jonathan.
Yes, sir.
I think, on this issue, if we're going to continue your order, we have to take action today.
I think so. That's what
I mean,
I
it says that very clearly on the last page under item 3. So whether we need to or not is a different issue. To me, I would be in favor of extending it, but I don't think that is absolutely necessary because of the governor's order.
Yeah, I thought we had to, I thought it lasted 7 days, 10 days.
I think we
something
agreed.
like that.
No, and we're gonna need to get the county attorney involved in this.
Excuse me, Judge, the order will last indefinitely until it's rescinded by the court, because that's what was entered in the original order. It doesn't have to
Judge,
be renewed
Heather, that's wrong.
every day.
I don't think that's right.
Item 3 says, that this state of disaster shall continue for a period of not more than 7 days
Right.
of the date hereof, unless same is continued by consent of Commissioners Court.
Yeah. I remember us putting that in there.
Yeah.
So, we're not sitting in front of the rule right now. I can go pull it up, but.
I've got it, Heather. May I weigh in?
Sure.
What, Commissioners, what he's talking about is the order on March the 30th. If you look at it, paragraph 2 says, this order shall take effect immediately from and after it's, well, I lost it here. Heather, help me. I'm trying to find it again.
She doesn't have it, she said.
The original
Here.
order was only 7 days. When you extended it on
Right.
March 30th,
Right.
that's until further notice.
So
Oh.
if you go to the March 30 order, here, and by the way, folks, I'm not licking my fingers to turn pages anymore. I have a damp paper towel up here trying to do that. It's a good tip. But if you look at the order on that's dated the 30th, I'll push it over so Mr. Moser can see it. Dated 30th day of March, and you can see here's paragraphs 1 and 2. When you flip it,
She can pick it down again.
yeah, I've got it here. Put the paper on top of it. On paragraph 1, the order extending the original order, this is the March 30 order. Paragraph 1 says that the state of disaster proclamation by the Kerr County Judge on March 24, 2020 shall continue until terminated by order of the Kerr County Commissioners Court.
So it's in effect.
And so it's in effect.
So we don't need
Okay,
to.
corrected.
Right.
That's the point you were trying to make, wasn't it, Heather?
Yes, sir, and that's permitted by the government code.
Right. So,
So it's in effect.
yes, but even though that's the order that we entered, I said I was going to put it on the agenda every week for us to talk about it. Because I think it's important that we talk about this. The public wants to hear what we have to say about it.
I agree. We don't have to take any action, but we need to reinforce what the governor's order said. And it's just down to common sense. And I see it being used a lot. Maybe not all the trucks you're talking about going down the road, the cab full of people in it, maybe they need to take extra vehicles or something like that. And use prudent judgment at work, when you're hunting, if you're on the golf course.
There's one other thing that, under essential services, let me state this and then see if I'm correct. All services that the county provides to the citizens are available.
Yes.
Correct. So I think that's important to everybody to understand. Work is being done different ways. It's being done teleworking, et cetera, by various departments that can do that, by various elected officials. But all services to the county are open. And I guess I got a question for Jonathan on the animal services. Jonathan,
Yes.
what is the operations protocol and plans right now for animal services? Several people have asked
There
that.
are no volunteers are allowed, and you must have an appointment to enter the facility. Whether you want to surrender or adopt or whatever, you must call and get an appointment ahead of time. And we have discontinued all trapping. The loading of traps or going out and checking traps.
Okay, thank you.
So it's modified.
Yeah,
but
it is with a lot,
Should be.
okay? But that's good. So it's kind of like in vet. I went to veterinarian services the other day, and I had to make an appointment. They come out to your car to get your animal. You don't go inside. So so it's similar to what animal services are for the county. Call, make an appointment, no volunteers, etc. Good, thank you, John.
Something else we modified the recycling trailer. We suspended that act, using those for now.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, anything
The
else?
sheriff's still picking up people the normal way. He's still arresting folks. Hands on, right? With gloves. Yeah.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is 2.1, pay the bills. Ms. Shelton.
Good morning. Today's invoices for Kerr County, $128,239.18. The airport, $28,093.67. Adult probation, $612.60. The Plateau Water Planning, $116.25. And district clerk fees, $1,000.
I mean, pay the bills.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Blue to pay the bills as presented. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. John?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
5-0.
Now, he can't vote.
Yeah. Wait, he's got to say yes.
Yeah, no, but can he vote?
Well-
Seriously, because before we said that couldn't be. He can listen, but I don't think he can vote.
Got
Anyway,
quorum
it
here.
doesn't matter, we've got to.
You participate under the governor's rules. You can participate
That's right.
virtually.
Okay, fantastic. That's good.
He's only there by phone to make sure we don't put him on another committee anyway.
That's true.
Okay, good deal.
Okay, budget amendments.
There are not any.
Okay. Late bills
There are not any.
and court orders.
Commissioner
Yes, we did have court orders for 2 meetings. The March 23rd meeting, court orders 38020 through 38030. Then our March 30th meeting, court orders 38031 through 38039. Make a motion, we approve all of them as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Letts and seconded by Commissioner Harris to approve the court orders as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes. It's unanimous also. Moving on, I think we've suspended our semi-annual reports, but 3.1, are there any status reports from department heads? 3.2, any status reports from elected officials? Number 3?
Hold on.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's right, I forgot. Okay, this is Bob Reeves, our tax assessor collector.
Good morning. This is more of a public service update than anything. We are working with the staff. We are renewing vehicle registration, working paperwork. But I'd like to point out, and I've sent this to Commissioner Blue last week to ask him to broadcast this, and I'd like the public to know for their own well-being and safety. Car registration, transfers, all of the duties of Department of Motor Vehicle have been suspended until 60 days after the governor lifts this emergency. So if your car registration ran out March 31st, at the very earliest, we're talking June 1st for you to have to renew it if he had lifted it then. So why I'm saying this, we do have a drop box out, but the people don't have to get out and renew it right now. And we get a lot of calls on that. They're worried what they're going to do. This isn't something that Kerr County has come up with. This is what the governor has. You can renew online. You can renew by mail. And I urge the citizens to take advantage of those options if they so desire to renew their registration. We are processing titles from the dealers each day, but they do those electronically. If you sold a car, private party, you have that same extension to get your title transferred as the 60 days as I was talking about. There's a little difference on paying the sales tax, but at the minimum, you have 90 days from when it would be due. So in this early part of that, you don't even have to worry about that and not have a penalty. So I would urge everybody to utilize online or mail. Property taxes, there can be no extension on the penalties and interest which are accruing on delinquent taxes. The governor has not extended or given any relief on that. But once again, you can mail in the checks, you can pay online, and I'd urge everybody to do that.
Can you tell us, Bob, what those websites are to go to for vehicle registration and for paying your taxes specifically?
For the vehicle registration commissioner, it's Texas Department of Motor Vehicles. I don't have the exact address, but it's I believe it's TXDMV
I think you're right.
that you can go to. Then for the online property taxes is Kerr County's website, and then go to my page, for mine being the tax collector's page, and you can pay online from there.
Bob, what you just said, is that on the county website or your website?
Yes, sir. I've got it plastered all over there.
So the links to those things that
Yes.
Commissioner Blue just asked about are on there also?
On there.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
sir. Yes, sir. And just one final part of this, I'm sure you're aware, but the May 2nd city elections for the city of Ingram, city of Kerrville, by resolutions of both city councils, have been pushed back to the November general election for that. And then, as I'm sure you're aware of, the runoff election for the two parties and from the primary that was held in March will now be July 14th. So all of the pressing issues have been taken care of on that. But we do have a Dropbox, but as I said, I urge people, utilize the mail, utilize online. Certainly call our office, the numbers are there depending on which department you are. And utilize that as much as you can, because the doors to our office are locked. We do have Dropbox here, the ability to drop off payments at the Ingram Annex. We check it each day. But from your motor vehicle registration, we have some relief on that. There has been some questions about inspections. We have called around. Not every shop is doing inspections, but there are still doing inspections right now. If you feel like you just need to register your vehicle, there are inspection stations that are doing it.
So if you are gonna do it online, you need that inspection, don't you?
That is correct, and it will be through, when they log it in, the system will be able to tell.
So I was asked this question this week, so I'm gonna ask you, because I know that you know, Mr. Reeves, that if somebody takes advantage of that 60 days, 90 days, whatever the maximum is that prorated, or does it start at the date it was originally due, or has anybody even discussed that?
Like, if I understand your question, Commissioner, if your registration was due March 31st, and because of this, you don't renew it until June 1st, it still would be the March 31st, and the amount you would pay, unless they change that at some point.
Does that change the date when I'd have to,
No,
the next year?
no.
So it'd still be March 31st?
March 31st. And the whole thing, there's no late penalties, and Sheriff, if I'm correct, I know locally you're not enforcing an expired registration sticker, but I believe the governor has ordered not to
The
enforce it.
governor's pretty well said, don't enforce that at this time. So I know our agency's not, I can't talk to other agencies.
And because technically you're not, you have not expired if
Sure.
you get down to the letter of it because of the extension.
And I'd like to add something. I conducted a lot of these briefings last week in my office with the windows that look out front of the courthouse. In fact, one meeting I was sitting in with with Bob Reeves, and we're watching elderly people come to the courthouse to pay taxes. And we're the vulnerable group, and I include myself in that because I am old. I'm that old. But you don't need to come to the courthouse to do it. And we kind of chuckle to ourselves watching a couple of these old people walk in with their envelopes, and they're here to pay something.
And we were grateful that they're wanting to do
Absolutely.
to take care of business, but for their safety, please utilize the mail. We will even work with you over the phone with credit cards to try to process and take care of the citizens. Just for their own health, the safety, and everything else. Let's utilize the resources that we have.
And that applies to those quarterly payments for their property taxes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I want to make sure they understand that.
And that was what a lot of the payments last week were our bosses, our citizens that are over 65, who opted for their homestead to break the payments up into 4 payments. Well, the second payment was due March 31st, and
we watched them.
And they were wanting to make sure they were promptly paid.
Sure.
And we're grateful for that, and we appreciate it, but for the safety, I would urge to utilize the mail, utilize the online systems, or just give us a call. We'll work it
It'd
through.
be nice to have a really simple statement like that on all the courthouse doors. You know, you can pay by mail, call us if you have any questions.
We have,
I think it's out there.
we have a
Yeah.
variety of
Oh,
options
okay.
on our office door, not necessarily the
Put them on the outside, that'll keep people from even coming in.
What's the best phone number to call?
830-792-2242, and we'll get you to any of the departments that you may need within that office.
Good deal.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mr. Reeves.
Anything else from the liaison commissioners?
I have a couple of things. On the Kerrville Economic Development Corporation, there's going to be a webinar on April the 9th to help people understand what can and cannot be done in the county. You can go to the KEDC website and get that information on the webinar. The other thing is, in economic development, there's a new business that's starting, even in this environment, and on Gold Creek Road, about a 10,000 square foot facility for metal buildings. All Plastics is trying to hire an additional 10 people because they've gotten a lot more orders with all this COVID-19 issues in the plastic products that they make. Under Veteran Service Officer, we've applied, or the Veterans 501c3 organization has applied for $75,000 to fund the Veterans Pathway from the Veterans Hospital to Flat Rock Park. So all I can say is they've made the application, so hopefully that'll come about. And that's it.
Anything else? There being no other business for the court, we are adjourned.